Penn State, Ohio State, Happy Valley, noon game. This Saturday is going to be crazy. We've already had a pretty wild NCAA FBS season. We've seen these Ohio State Buckeyes go out to Oregon in a game I thought they'd win. I thought this was the year for Ohio State, but they struggled at Oregon offensively and weren't able to make plays when they needed it most. We saw some mishaps, some bad decision making on Will Howard's part there towards the end of the game. They just didn't have enough for what looks like presumptively the best team in the country in Oregon, who's now number one. But this rivalry runs deep. Ohio State and Penn State. Overall, Ohio State has a 24-14 advantage. These teams have been playing since 1912. Mm-hmm. Listen, my granddaddy was born in like 1917. So to think they was clashing and bumping heads since 1912 and have been in the Big Ten together since 1933 is wild. But the news is Penn State is 4-7 all time when both teams are ranked in the top 5 AP poll during the regular season. They're 17-60-1 all time against top 5 teams, including 15-55 in regular season matchups. So it doesn't bode well for Penn State when playing top 5 teams. When they're ranked among the top 5, Penn State is 102-23-1. So they do have a good record when they're also in the top 5. I think the most important thing to look at here, both teams are ranked within the top 5 in total defense. Ohio State is ranked a little higher offensively when we look at those numbers. So this will be a pretty even matchup. I think it'll be a low-scoring affair. I look at, the recency bias in terms of Ohio State struggling at home against the Nebraska football team last weekend, just barely getting out of there with a win, versus the Penn State football team going on the road to Wisconsin. It's tough to go on the road in the Big Ten, but going and getting a tough win with their starting quarterback being hurt and having to play with their backup and still pulling that game out and pulling away after being up 10-7 at halftime. So if we had to make a pick, you look at Ohio State wide receiver Jeremiah Smith, most prolific freshman receivers I've ever seen. You got Egbuka, Brandon Ennis, so many guys in that receiving court that are going to play on Sundays and that are NFL talents. And then not to mention Judkins and Henderson in that backfield. If you had to make a decision, Doug, who are you taking to win in Happy Valley this Saturday?
I'm going to have to go with Ohio State. I mean, the Battle of the States, it's always good to see it. Both fan bases are amazing. I mean, when I lived in Philadelphia, most of my colleagues that I worked with attended Penn State, so they had a lot of Nittany Lion pride. But overall, I think Ohio State has a better collective of talent on the team. And so, like you just rattled off all of the skilled players, they have a big up front. The linemen are great, both offensively and defensively. So with that being said, I think this may be a blowout. This might be a blowout. So for me, I have to go with Ohio State.
Yeah, for me, it's tough because when I look at it, I look at how these teams are structured and just the makeup. Both of these teams are defensive minded. They want to stop the run. So then I have to look at the pass. Who has better weapons and who could be more efficient in their pass game against the other team? And I think when you look at Ohio State and the number of weapons they have, it's just, we're talking about top 5 receiving core in the nation against a receiving core that's not top 5. I think that's all the difference. But then you got to look at who's at quarterback. Do I believe in Will Howard and that he's going to be able to go into Happy Valley and play effectively? And then the tide changes when you start to talk about the fact that we're playing in Happy Valley and Penn State has the momentum of being undefeated. They have the momentum of knowing under James Franklin they're 1-9 against Ohio State. They've lost 7 straight games to Ohio State. 4 of which have been by single digits. And I say, Cat Williams said this is the year of truth. Everything was going to be exposed this year. Ohio State's getting exposed on Saturday. They were
Oh,
already exposed at Oregon. At the end of the day, Will Howard is a solid quarterback, but I don't feel like he's elite. And I feel like this Penn State defense is going to wreak havoc. It's going to be hard for Ohio State to run the ball, even with Judkins and Henderson in the backfield. But it's going to be even more difficult for them to make those big plays against this Penn State defense, who's hungry to change the fate for their coach, who does not look good. Like, if James Franklin had to get judged off of how well he plays Ohio State, the Michigans of the world, he would already be fired. 1-9, last 10 games. Come on, son. I mean, what's going on here? So, but I think it changes this year. I think Penn State has that momentum. I think they go past Ohio State in a tough, close game. It comes down to probably the last series and who has the ball and whether or not a stop can be made. But I got Penn State winning this game at home.
it's a bold pick, brother. Don't put no money.
It's a bold pick. And listen, if you're rocking with me, bet the house on it. Bet the house on it. Just put your whole crib on it. I'm telling you, Penn State. We're gonna come back to this. Dub said it's bold. I think it is bold. Sometimes you got to step out on the limb. I'm rocking with the Nittany Lions, and I'm a huge fan of Big Brother. I've been rocking with Big Brother this past season. I think season 26, the wife and I. And one of the finalists, I can't think of his name right now, he played for Penn State. So we're rocking with Penn State to knock off the Buckeyes this Saturday.